What if the world's most powerful voices are not found in grand theatres, but in the quiet streets where no one stops to listen? What if the song that could touch millions was carried by a boy the world had overlooked, a boy who had nothing, yet sang as if he carried the weight of heaven in his chest? In the heart of Manila, where narrow alleys twist like veins through crowded slums, there lived a young man named Joshua Cruz. To his neighbors, he was simply called Jesus from Manila, not because he sought recognition, but because of the way he carried himself, gentle, humble, and strangely luminous. His long dark hair and serene gaze reminded many of the sacred paintings that hung in tiny chapels along the streets. Joshua was no stranger to hardship. His father had passed away when he was a child, leaving his mother, Eleanor, to raise him alone. She was a fruit vendor, her hands hardened by years of labor, yet her heart soft, always giving away more than she earned. Joshua grew up watching her sacrifice, learning that love was not measured by abundance, but by what one gave even in scarcity. From an early age, his voice became his refuge. In the mornings, he sang in the small church down the road, where the sound echoed against cracked walls and carried through open doors. By evening, he sang on street corners, his notes rising above the chaos of jeepneys, vendors, and endless traffic. But unlike others who sang for coins, Joshua sang to lift spirits. For the homeless man asleep on the sidewalk. For the child selling sampaguita flowers under the weight of exhaustion. For his mother who smiled through her struggles. People said his voice carried something different, something beyond music. It wasn't just melody. It was hope, raw and unpolished, but strong enough to make strangers pause and listen. Yet, for years, his gift lived only in the shadows of Manila's forgotten streets. And bring even Simon Cowell to tears. He woke before sunrise to help his mother carry baskets of fruit to the market, weaving through streets alive with honking horns and voices calling out prices. Every peso earned was stretched thin, yet Eleanor never allowed her son to feel poor. She reminded him that they were rich in kindness, in faith, and in the ability to share even when they had little to give. Still, Joshua's secret dream lingered quietly in his heart. Each time he sang, he imagined what it might be like for his voice to reach beyond the walls of his neighborhood. Not for fame, not for glory, but so that people who felt forgotten might know they were not alone. One afternoon, as he sang near a busy plaza, something unexpected happened. A tourist from abroad, moved by the purity of his voice, recorded him on a small phone camera. Within days, that video traveled across oceans, gathering millions of views. For the first time, Joshua's song was no longer confined to Manila's crowded streets. It was echoing in living rooms, offices, and hearts around the world. Then came the message that changed everything. Producers from America's Got Talent reached out, inviting him to audition in the United States. It felt impossible. The boy who had never left the Philippines was now being called to stand on one of the biggest stages on earth. At first, Joshua hesitated. But Eleanor, with quiet strength, reminded him that his voice was not his alone. It was a gift for the world. And sometimes, the bravest act of love is to let go so that another can rise. With trembling hands, Joshua packed a single bag. Inside were only the essentials: a worn rosary, a white shirt, and the hope his mother had carried for him since birth. The journey ahead was uncertain, but one truth was clear: the world was about to hear the boy they called Jesus from Manila. The air inside the America's Got Talent theater was electric. Bright lights swept across thousands of faces, cameras flashed, and the judges sat poised behind their iconic desk. For many performers, this stage was a dream built over years of preparation. But for Joshua Cruz, it was a leap of faith, a step from the unseen streets of Manila into the blinding spotlight of the world. Some tilted their heads, unsure of what to expect from this quiet figure with long hair and a serene gaze. Not because he was free of fear, but because he carried within him a faith larger than his doubt. When the music began, the theatre shifted. The first note left his lips, clear and haunting, and instantly the atmosphere changed. The restless energy of the crowd stilled. Joshua's voice was not polished with training or adorned with theatrics. It was raw, unshaken, and deeply human. Every note seemed to rise from the cracks of struggle, from nights of hunger, from mornings of sacrifice. Yet it carried light hope that glowed through sorrow. The audience sat in stillness, not out of politeness, but because something greater than entertainment was unfolding before them. It was no longer just a talent show stage. It was a sanctuary, where thousands listened not just to music, but to the soul of a boy from Manila who had come to remind the world of hope. Each note was heavy with memory: his mother's weary hands arranging fruit in the market, the laughter of children in the alleys of Manila, the silent prayers whispered into the night sky. His voice broke barriers of language, culture, and distance. It was no longer just sound, it was truth, and in that moment, the audience did not see a young man from a faraway land. They saw themselves. They felt their own losses, their own hopes, their own silent battles reflected in the trembling power of his song. Then came the crescendo. Joshua lifted his face toward the lights, his voice soaring higher than anyone thought possible, raw yet unshakable. It was as if the pain of millions rose with him, transformed into something holy. The theatre shook with silence so absolute, it felt like the whole world was holding its breath. At the judges' table, Simon Cowell's expression changed. His eyes glistened, his head bowed slightly, and for a moment he looked less like a critic and more like a man who had just been reminded of something greater than himself. A single tear escaped, tracing down his face. Then another. He tried to hide it, but the emotion was too strong. When the final note lingered and fell into silence, the crowd erupted. People on their feet, hands raised, tears streaming. Yet amidst the chaos, Simon's hand reached forward. Golden confetti rained from the ceiling, swirling around Joshua like a crown he never asked for. He stood still in the storm of applause, humbled, almost overwhelmed, as if he, too, could not believe what was happening. It wasn't just a victory, it was a moment that transcended the stage, a reminder that even in a world hardened by noise, a single voice pure, unguarded, and honest could still break hearts open and bring tears to the unshakable.